I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm a little past USL time is what Robert likes to say, but just a couple minutes. Go ahead and welcome everybody tonight to this regular planning and zoning meeting here on March 7th, 2023. I'd like to open it right up with the first item on the agenda is the consideration of the planning and zoning minutes from the meeting held on January 16th, 2023. Are there any changes to those that were presented to you?
Move to approve, waive the reading.
Thank you.
I'll say.
Okay, thanks. All right, I got a first from Brandon.
Yeah, I never got a second.
Second from EJ.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Public comment? Do not think we have any public comment here this evening. We're clear over there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next on the agenda, discussion and approval of all-terrain vehicles. I know this might be just a little confusing to you because I'm not sure you're going to say, Gary, well, we already approved that. And we did. You guys did approve this. It was unanimous. What we did was we just passed the state ordinance there that they had. I did submit it over to Greg just for his final approval before we sent it to council. It was, and we had this discussion, we had talked about there was some county verbiage in there, not much, but there was some county verbiage in there that Greg said, we probably should go ahead and remove that county verbiage out of there. It doesn't change much of anything at all. Matter of fact, it's so small that it was fairly easy to go through and do. It didn't change the ordinance in any way, except it just took out that county information in there. I've got what it was before and what it is now. Amy was real helpful with that, and we went through and got rid of the county. It looks good now, but I wanted you to have it in front of you. I didn't want to send it off to council because truly you guys did approve with the county in it. So is there any objections to any of that? You want a second to look at it? Should have been in the packets, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Any issues with that at all? Okay. If you don't mind, I would like to go ahead and just, get a first and a second on that.
Do you need a motion to approve the new ordinance or just a motion to amend the ordinance that we already?
I think amend it is fine.
Just a motion
Yeah.
to amend.
Yeah,
that
please.
ordinance.
Yep.
So,
All right. Got a first and a second to amend that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Next, discussion of Article 505, Animals and Fowl Ordinance. I'd like to just begin by saying, I think as we move forward, I know the Recorder's Office has been, pretty busy lately, especially lately. However, I've had a lot of discussion with our code official, Joey. I want to thank Joey Gross for showing up tonight. He's doing an outstanding job for us out in the field, but his job can be somewhat challenging at times, and some of those challenges, I believe, come from ordinances that were written in the 60s. And there's been a lot of changes since the 60s, and we've grown a lot in the city of Summersville, and we're going to have to, as planning and zoning, I know I really got to thinking, I think Mr. Wedge was talking maybe in the last meeting as to sort of what we need to move forward with and what we shouldn't, and sometimes some of these things get aggravating and frustrating, but what I'd like to do is begin challenging the planning and zoning to look at some of these ordinances. I've asked Joey to help us a little bit with some of the issues that he's been having and what he gets out there with, and a lot of those are gray areas in ordinances. If you had a chance to look at this particular ordinance that we're on right now, the Article 505 Animals and Fowl Ordinance, just a lot of gray area in there. And I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to read it, but one of the issues that has been coming up recently is the chickens. And I brought that up to the council, and we had a lot of giggles and smiles, and it was, but at the end of the day, Joey's out there and he's got to address that. And in that ordinance, it says no fowl, no chicken allowed in the city limits, basically. And then it turns right back around and it says almost a line or two later, there's a permitting process where the city recorder can permit chickens. And then it follows right up with not only the city recorder, but then it says, and city council. So, a couple things. One, we've, to my knowledge, never permitted any chickens. I can't find anywhere in our records that says we've permitted any chickens. Two, there says there's an application process, and I have not seen an application for that process. So that's sort of where we are. It's my challenge to see what the wishes of this board or commission is. Do we want chickens? Do we not want chickens? And there again, it's just a recommendation that we would send to, the council. But if we do not want them, I would like to revisit that ordinance and basically amend that ordinance and take the section out that allows the recorder to make the decision on permitting the chickens. There's no need for it to be in there. Again, it's another gray area. If we do not want them, it shouldn't be in there. Now, if we want them, that's a whole different thing. I made it clear at the city council meeting, my big concern with chickens, and I'm not totally against chickens, but I am concerned about chickens in the city limits, and some of my concerns is pretty legit. I mean, we've talked about predators and we've talked about prey and things of that nature, but if we open it up for chickens, you're going to see more of that in our city limits. You're going to see more coyotes, you'll see foxes, you're going to see skunks, and I'm not the hunter that some of you guys are, but I'm sure there's other predators that would begin showing up a lot more often. I know I live on Starbuck and we have had coyotes in our neighborhood, so those are some of my concerns. Another concern I would have is what will happen to our code official. He's going to, begin needing to inspect when there's, phone calls and complaints. We had some already on chickens. It was chickens at large. Neighbors had some chickens and they were wandering around, and it was just one of those things they didn't understand. But I can honestly say the gentleman handled it so professionally, and it was done so well, and it was cleaned up nicely, and the chickens are gone, and it went really, really well. And kudos to him. It was a great meeting. But these things are going to continue to come up, and we just need to try.
They're not all going to go that well.
Yeah, they won't all go that well. That's exactly right. And it's easy for me to say one thing or the other, but he's the one out in the field that has to address it. So I'd like it to be a little more clear, if that's possible, to help him out there. And then, we have another discussion right after this one, and it's sort of the same way. He needs some help out there. These things are beginning to pop up. So I'm going to open the floor, and I did talk with Jim last night, his feelings on it, and he spoke about it too. So any thoughts? And it's a tough one. I mean, it is. Craig's in deep thought.
Well, the problem, there are definitely places in city limits that would probably be fine to have chickens. However, 90% of the places aren't. And then you also have people who would fully take care of their chicken coops, chickens, everything, and then just as many that wouldn't. So without leaving a gray area somewhere in there, I just don't know how you manage that with, and it would be a full-time job for Joey to have to run around, deciding what's okay and not okay.
This person's going to build a nice chicken coop. This guy's going to build one out of wooden pallets.
That's what I mean.
It's going to be. If everybody.
I just don't know how you differentiate between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
You got people can't take care of domestic pets, let alone something like that. You got big farms with stray cats and dogs.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be tenfold when you get in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be It'd be almost impossible to manage.
I'm having problems with
Just
dogs
keep it.
running at large right now.
But you know, even Lord Joe was saying, you got the responsible, you got the irresponsible ones. To your point, when you talked about this, even the responsible ones with an elaborate system, clean system, you're still gonna have your predators.
Yeah.
Which then in turn are going to prey on your domestic animals,
Right.
your cats, your dogs, whatever. I don't know. Then what's the benefit? It's amazing,
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I'd like to hear Joe's opinion, straight up.
Well, it's, like I said, it's, for me, it's tough either way, it's gonna be tough. But, you know, I think it should be either we allow them or we don't. The permit thing, that's not, I don't think that should even be an option. I mean, it says right in the ordinance, that you have to go 500 feet from the coop once they give you permission to all your neighbors. Well, I've already dealt with this. I addressed it 2 years ago. She went and done the 500 foot. The complainer signed off on it. They don't want to make their neighbors mad. So it's people's gonna sign it in almost any neighborhood in town. They're gonna sign it. And this last one I dealt with had 3 complaints. None of the complaints complained about just them having chickens. It was they were scratching their mulch beds up. That's what the complaint was. They were running it long. They were everywhere. I mean, you could go out there and you'd see 10, 15 chickens just all over the place. So it's either you're gonna have them or you're not. That's my opinion. Either way, like I said, either way, it's not gonna be fun. I'm either gonna be inspecting chicken coops every day or telling people they can't have it, point blank. I mean, that's my opinion.
How many people do you got right now coming in here one?
I do not have any coming in.
So this is just something we're doing a preemptive strike.
Yes.
I mean,
Now, are there any out there? I don't know. I was not aware of these, and then it just popped up. And I don't know if it would have popped up had they not gone at large.
if they would kept them pinned up, I don't think I'd ever got the first complaint.
How many complaints have you had, Joey?
On this last one I took care of, I had three complaints. And like I said, I knew I had to address it, but I was talking to Gary, I was like, read this ordinance. I mean, it depends on how you read it. Here it says you can't have them, here it says you can have them with a permit, so which way is it going? That's tough. So the language is just not good in them. And I get it, the price of eggs, I get that, but
They came down a little bit last week.
yeah. And then you got people saying that they're therapeutic chickens. I don't buy that one. They say they help with stress. Well, if that's the case, we'd all have 10 or 12. So I mean, I don't like hearing that excuse, but the egg thing, I get that. But
Well, the problem, it says you cannot have them.
Right.
And then it says, if you get a permit, it has to be approved by the recorder and by city council.
Right.
and then you have to do if that's approved, then you start your 500 foot
You have to have a majority there.
majority, which is 1 over half. You're going to get that in any neighborhood. I don't care where you're at. Just like I said, it's already happened.
Well, it's hard to tell your neighbor that you can't do that.
I mean, the last girl that done it, everybody signed it. Everybody in that 500 foot radius. They said, don't want to make each other
Well, tell
mad.
me this, if something like that wasn't allowed and somebody wanted that, would that not be considered close to the same thing as like a variance of the ordinance? Would it be like a variance? I know it's different with residential as it is to commercial and things like that.
Well, I mean, I guess you could look at it like that.
I just don't understand why it comes before council and the recorder, because then like a normal variance would go before the BZA.
BZA, exactly.
Which changed a lot of that
Yeah.
recently. Before it probably did go to the order. But we kind of updated that whole repeal process.
That's what I mean, they're kind of the judicial of being able to grant variances and things like that around the laws that we have written, so I don't know why it wouldn't go to that body if somebody was trying to get a variance on something, which is basically what that would be.
I mean, I'm like Gary, I don't have nothing against chickens, I mean, but, you know, they are messy. I agree with what BJ's saying about the predators. I mean, yeah, we have predators in town, that's just gonna make it worse, but it's tough.
So what would you like to see? That's true.
I think at this time, I'm personally against chickens in the city limits. For all the above reasons, I just think that it's gonna open up, big issues for Joey. I think it's, you know, the predators. I think we do have a lot of pets, and a lot of people have pets in their neighborhoods. You have a lot of cats, you have a lot of, I know we have in our neighborhood invisible fences where the pets run free in their yard. So I personally am against, but I'm certainly open to listening.
Well, here's my other question where we were talking about the BZA. Even if something, if this ordinance strictly said no chickens in city limits, people still have the option of filing with the BZA, and then the BZA either upholds our laws that we have in the city or grants a variance. But I mean, people can request a variance on anything.
That's exactly true. I have never not allowed somebody
To request a variance.
to request a variance to go in front of the BZA. Matter of fact, I think I've been pretty active with that. Would you agree with that? I mean, people that want variance, I give them that opportunity in front of BZA.
So that's what I mean, if we weren't for having chickens in city limits,
Sure.
we could very easy change that wording around to where it said, you know, prohibited.
Sure.
And then still, if they want to go request a variance with the BZA, I mean, they may not get it, but they have the right to take that.
But it could be that 10% that you were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
where it's out somewhere that
Mhm.
it would not affect other neighbors,
Right.
you know? And then the BZA, they may at that point say, grant the variance.
Yeah, something too, if we go, you know, looking in the future, annexation, stuff like that, and add more, that might add more to those properties that could benefit, you know, not
Sure.
affect others, you know.
Larger properties, larger acreage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it might not be
Absolutely.
a factor now, but, you know, 5, 10 years down the road, it might be.
Yeah. I'm certain there's some deed restrictions in some of the areas. So there's, you know, we're talking about not the entire city, because I'm sure that some of these neighborhoods have deed restrictions against it, I would think. I'm sure ours in that area has some deed restrictions,
Of course, if that's the case, it would be between the property owners, not the city.
but sure.
So,
Unless it just flat out says no. Tough.
That's what I mean, even if it flat out says no,
They can
they can still go
try to get a
case
variance.
to
Absolutely,
try to get a variance with the BZA, right?
absolutely. I feel they can.
That's how I am, I mean, I feel that's the point of that body.
Yeah, it is. It is. Again, we are trying to get out in front of this thing. You know, that's all we're trying to do. Like the next item on the agenda, the tiny houses, we're just trying to get out in front of it. It's starting, whether, you know, whether it's here or not, it's coming.
Well, and that helps you too, because you can enforce it then. You can say, you know, our ordinance says no,
Prohibits.
you're not allowed, and it's prohibited. And then they still have the option to try to
get a
Go
variance.
get a variance and plead their case, but it gives you some ground to stand on when you're trying to enforce it.
Does the work in their hands.
And I do think there's some opportunity for variances in some areas.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we prohibit chickens in the city limits.
Okay.
Are we gonna do, strike the whole permit requirements of all animals or just chickens?
No, I think, look at it here real quick. This is all terrain, all terrain.
I think because you only have discussion of articles 505,
Yeah.
we better just take discussion tonight, think of what amendments we want on there, and then bring the amendments for a vote.
I think it's, you get.
I think that's a good idea too.
Permit to happen.
So let's do this, Tim. Let's go ahead and just keep it at a discussion, and then we'll come back to the next meeting with what we recommend as amendments.
The language.
Maybe have the city attorney come back with a recommendation.
Absolutely,
for us.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I'll do that, but I'll get Greg involved in that, have him give me a recommendation, and then I'll come back to you guys.
So you might want to strike the whole section.
Yeah, he may want to rewrite that a little bit, but I just think that would be cleaner. It's
You
going
know, what Tim's saying is that permits for other animals.
Anything
Yeah.
except dogs and cats.
Yes, absolutely.
this might be a stupid question, but do we have anybody in the city that actually has a small farm?
There is a, well,
Judy
yeah,
Stanley.
Judy Stanley's his grandfather in down there
Oh, that's right.
with the horses and,
Ellen Grove,
yeah,
Grove Street.
yeah, Grove Street. You're right.
See Brad Huger at the end of Townsend Drive, but he has chicken.
Yeah.
He's in that grandfather there.
Maybe,
Isn't Lawrence?
maybe Lawrence
That
Thomas.
section between his mom's house and
Yeah,
his house.
yeah. So there are a few.
I don't know, when I was a kid, we had the one, between Dam Street and West Street.
Yeah.
I had a cow there, it was the one that's not, there's houses there now.
Yeah. Again, though, out there where Judy lives, that's out.
Yeah.
I mean,
She's like,
Yeah.
Lawrence
Well,
is
look,
out.
that's right.
I mean, it's not,
Or your wife's name, Mrs. May.
They don't have any animals up
They
there.
don't have any animals, but it's still a farm.
Yeah, they're still a barn.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
There is a legitimate.
I mean, where I grew up, there used to be a farm.
Yeah.
So we had cattle.
Yeah. So if it's okay with you, I'll just leave this to a discussion, and I'll take this to Greg and ask him for some language, and then bring it back to our next meeting and get approval, maybe more discussion. Does that sound good? Any other comments on it? Joey, you have anything else on the chickens? Okay. We'll move on to the next item, discussion of tiny homes. Again, just trying to get out in front of it. Again, I'm not against tiny homes. When you go and you look at tiny homes, they certainly have their place, they certainly have a reason. And when I get in and I research it, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I see a lot of the disasters that's happened in some areas with hurricanes and tornadoes and things. There's been a lot of communities set up with tiny homes, and they have found a lot of success in those. It's almost becoming like trailer parks in some areas, but those tiny homes are happening. There's, a lot of that kind of stuff happening. There's some states that are allowing, Craig, I'm gonna ask for your advice on some of this. You're the expert on this stuff, you sell that stuff, but there's some areas that are allowing them to come in wheels in backyards when there's situations where they're taking care of a family member or something of that nature. Their state's finding success in that. Now they have to go through a permitting process, but there's some of that going on. But we know it's coming. We had a request recently for a tiny home. The gentleman just wanted to put a building similar to what you sell, probably exactly what you're selling there. I don't know that it'll was from your place, it could have been from anywhere, but he was gonna put it in the backyard, and I think, I'm assuming rent it, but, not positive. So, this is coming, and again, our ordinances just really do not address that very well. Jim and I talked last night about, you can start talking about single family dwellings. You might find a legality situation there, but we really need to address it. The other states, and even in the state of West Virginia, you're seeing them put some restrictions they're putting, using square footage as one of the restrictions. They're starting to use terms like permanent foundation and things like that as things that you can use with tiny homes and verbiage. But I think we need to address it. Right now, you really don't have anything to go on in your ordinances, do you?
Well, no, not in ordinances. I mean, in the International Residential Code, I mean, there's square footages of different rooms in a house that has to be, like a habitable room has to be 120 square foot, bedroom has to be a minimum of 70, has to be so much lighting, yada, yada, but I mean, I think there needs to be a square footage. And I mean, our ordinances would trump that as long as it's the same as or more restrictive, but not least restrictive. So I know a lot of other counties, I think Craig told me, didn't you say Greenbrier County had a square footage?
It's 800 feet up.
800 square feet.
I think it is.
Yeah, because I was going to move.
We have it
something
on
in
this,
there.
on the property side, don't we?
Well, you have it under mobile homes, don't you? Isn't this really covered under a mobile home?
About half today.
Yeah.
I mean, they did, home camper, whatever.
Would they be considered mobile homes?
Sure. Because you can move it anytime you want.
What about time of
Like
occupancy?
mobile home, wouldn't you?
Is that involved in a tiny home?
What is it?
Like a time of
Term
occupancy?
of occupancy, like, the reason I'm asking that, I spend a good bit of time down in southern West Virginia where you have all the four-wheelers coming in from North Carolina, Virginia, whatever, to run those old coal mines. And they're putting those things up, I mean, they're really putting them up fast. I mean, you can see 6 or 8 of them in a row.
Yes, they are.
For rent, whatever. My point is, if you're talking about a tiny home, maybe you can address the time of occupancy, like if it's over 30 days, because they go in for a week. And a good example, there was a guy, I didn't talk to him, but a guy did that I talked to. He said a guy came in and went into a little outlet or a little commercial store, like a whatever, and he got gas, and he said, "What's that building over there?" to the person inside. They said, that's where we used to have the office for the filling station here. And he said, "Will you rent that for a weekend?" He said, "Well, there's nothing in there, just," he said, "as long as I get in and out of the rain, I'd like to rent it for a weekend. How much you want for it?" And the guy said, "That's just money I wasn't gonna get before." So he rented it, but it would classify maybe as a tiny home. My point is, you don't, when you wanna make sure you're not gonna knock out your tourist, your whatever, but they really are coming up big time down in there. You go down in McDowell and back in country and Mingo and some of those, they're coming up really fast. I mean, they're not coming up one here and one there. They're doing 6 here, 4 here, and they rent them. And I mean, I guess they're like an Airbnb.
Airbnb?
Yeah, but there needs to be something involved in it that affects the amount of time you live in it. I don't know the definition of a tiny home, Greg, is there one?
I don't know if it would be or not. I mean, you could use a lot of different classifications for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have them pre-manufactured built with everything in it. You can take the ones like I've got and just finish the inside. You can do a lot.
Yeah. And they're not hidden. I mean, these are right on the main roads, like, I'm gonna use an example. You go down to Pineville, And if you go from Beckley into Pineville the old way, you go right into town, you're on the city limits, and there's 4 of them right here. I mean, it's the main road going in. You're not dodging them. Of course, they're rentals, they're weekend type or a week at a time. But I'm telling you, when it's in season, they're packed. And they, of course, they park their 4-wheelers right out front and put their truck there, and then they drive a 4-wheeler for the whole weekend. But it's coming big time.
I see a lot in campgrounds. They have the tiny homes there, they'll have like a,
Rent them as cabins.
be like a, they rent them, they have like he's had probably the trailer type things, that's like double 2-story inside, but they got some of them, they call them, they're like a, looks like a tent outside, but it's like a little cabin inside.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they have the cloth size like a tent.
Guys,
They
they're
put a
nice.
little porch on
Yeah,
it.
And they're like 30 by 30, they're pretty good sized little places, but
Yeah, those are bigger. The ones I see are probably, I don't even know if they'd be 20 foot wide.
Huh?
Probably what you see is like 12 by 30s or 12 by 25s.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
when I see this, like, I go to it, they're like 25, 25, or have bedroom, full-size bedroom, kitchen, family room, whole 9 yards inside it.
Something to keep in mind, there's several out there that's being used as primary residence. I mean, especially since the flood, I mean, there's a lot of people displaced, a lot of people that are less fortunate, but that's a great home for them, for a single individual or a small family. So, I mean, you know, whatever we go with this, we can keep that in mind, not just the, rental revenue, but for people that's all they get.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I know we don't have any of them here tonight, but the easiest place to start on this may be to try to look at some other areas that have ordinances on them. And just
Another problem,
to see what it says and get an idea of how they've,
Handle it.
another problem is, and I'd have to do a little more research, but some of these buildings that were turned into homes, if you're to do the right inspections by the International Building Code, you can't even get the right R value in walls.
Right.
So, do you just turn your head on that? I mean,
That is a good question, because I mean, my goodness, if a person only lives in a tent, what do you do?
there's rules in the code on R values, square footages, glazing, lighting. I mean, it's deep. So, I mean, how do you, I don't know, it's tough.
Maybe a good thing to do, though.
I just think
Research other cities. I'm trying to, my thought process is, how does it fit in our residential areas?
Hey Craig, these
That's a concern.
pre-manufactured buildings they're building for homes, do they meet building code?
I really don't know because I haven't seen that many of them, but I would say they do because they're very expensive. And Votech builds one, they built a few of them during the flood.
Which if it's a pre-manufactured home, that tells me right there, I can't even, on a double wide, inspection wise, I can inspect the pads it sets on, and that's it, until the porch is rebuilt. Other than that, manufactured home trumps what I do.
Here, Department of Labor, don't they? Department of Labor.
I don't know about that, but yeah, a manufactured home is built by their specs, which most of them are up to par, but still, I can, like I said, like that new one went in on Arbuckle Road, I was able to inspect the pads and go by code, by the depth and the width and all that. After that, till the porch is built, I don't have no jurisdiction there.
Yeah.
So that would probably fall into the same thing. And I don't know if I have much of a problem with a pre-manufactured home. I have more of a problem, and I'm not, nothing against your buildings, but I have more of a problem seeing people wanting to do that. Finish them by how they're supposed to by code. I think it's impossible on some of them, depends on how big they are, I guess, but I know a lot of people do it because it's affordable.
Well, and how they're built inside, like, we carry one line that's, 2 foot on centers. you know, ceiling roof, but the ones we build, they're all 16 on center.
Yeah.
So it's how they're built. Some are built to be outbuildings and some are built to be really nice outbuildings.
Right. Are any other 2 to 6 walls?
We can do 2 to 6 walls if people want. We have actually built a few 2 to 6 walls.
We're gonna have to get some definitions. You know, it could be, there's so many variables on these things, you don't,
Oh, yeah.
Well, I knew tiny homes was gonna be a discussion, it's gonna spark the interest, and, it needs some thought put behind it. But it's not something that we're gonna be able to jump on and do something in a meeting or two with it. I mean, you're right, there's gonna be a lot of research.
There's a lot to it.
What's that?
There's a lot to it.
Yes, there
And
is.
it may be something that's a case-by-case situation.
Mhm.
Because there's not gonna be that many of them. Do you
No.
agree with that?
I get a lot of calls,
Do you really?
probably one a week.
hmm.
Yeah.
What's it cost
Great.
pertaining to, about building one
The bad
or,
thing is I just ordered a whole truckload of chicken.
or,
Some people wants to build them, some people want to
Beat up all
bring
over.
an outbuilding in and turn it into a home. Some of them want, solid foundation and,
they're
Yeah.
not already built, and then you, once you come look at it, they want prior approval before they do it, or,
I mean, to start the permit process, they have to come in, whether they're bringing a building in or building one, I mean, the permit process starts, and that's when it comes up. I mean, there was one built up here last summer. Yeah, it's about 1,200 square foot. It's just a cabin,
oh, that's a nice home.
That's a good one.
or it's 1,000, 1,200. It's just one big room with a loft, the Amish building, which I don't need to go there, but anyway, I mean, yeah, it's not bad. Not a bad little home. He's got a lot of work to do. They just come in and build a shell and they're out of here. I mean, they got here at 8 o'clock on Monday morning and left by 4 on Friday. I mean, that's how quick, 3 of them.
They're good.
They get after it.
They're good, but they don't believe in code. They try everything they can to take shortcuts.
Amish code.
Huh?
Amish code.
Yeah, Amish code, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, so, any other comments on that?
I think just try to find some ordinances from some other areas just to get a start.
Yeah, you're gonna have, I agree with that. You can't just, I mean,
That'll let us see some definitions and see what other people are feeling like.
And then just basically do a working meeting where we sit down and just look at.
and then if you have the right person that knows a little bit about international building code, that, they could actually say, well, if I do this room this big, a bedroom, a bathroom, kitchen, 3 foot between the countertops, how are you gonna stop it? I mean, if international building code says you can do it, so,
All right.
not everybody coming in is gonna know that, but you'll have somebody.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll table this and do more discussion on it later and,
Need a motion to table it, or just let it go?
No, it's just under discussion.
yeah, I think, since I put it since we made it discussion, I think it's just a discussion, so I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
So I will get some things together, I'll do some research and give you some samples or some examples of maybe like communities like, similar to Summersville size and residential areas, and then we can move from there. At the end, as far as the chair report goes, I did want to let you know, I have been working, I don't know that it's huge and super important to the planning and zoning, but working on an annexation ordinance basically with Greg's help. And I worked through the State Municipality League. They were very helpful in giving me some information. Greg has all the information that I've researched and found, and he looked at it and he said he can work with that. So he is going to work with that. There was one little detail that he had to get worked out, but it wasn't gonna be a game changer or anything like that. But he can't really finish it until that's completed. So, you should be seeing that come back this way. I think it should probably go through here before it goes to the council as a recommendation. But it's basically, it's a little different, isn't it, Amy? It's a little different from other annexations that the city has done, because in this situation, the city owns the property. So it's a little different. Normally, they don't own the property that they're annexing in, so it's a little bit different. So that's why I have it with Greg, and he's putting it together for us. So it, just so you know, will not be me writing that ordinance. I've got Greg involved in that one. He's gonna have to put that together. But I wanted to let you know, because some of you may be sitting there thinking, hey, they bought that land, when's that gonna be annexed in? And, you know, we put that together, and then it still has to go to the commission. So, you know, I think it comes from this body to the council, and then as a recommendation, then it would go, I guess, over to the commission that has the final say on that. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Joey, I appreciate you coming out tonight. Is there anything else
No
that's
problem.
hot for you that you struggle with out there? I mean, these were the two big ones tonight we discussed, and I apologize if we can't make something happen tonight, but I agree that we need a little bit more discussion and figure it out.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's other things.
Yeah.
I don't think y'all wanna be here all night, so.
Yeah. So I've asked Joey to come. I don't think this will be the last time. I think that as we work through some of the things that he puts bugs in my ear a lot when I come in. So I want this body to hear what he's saying and hear some of the struggles that he may be having. If it's something that we can do to help, we should try to do that. I'm going to work toward that for Joey. I mean, it's tough. He's out there flying solo, so doing a great job out there too. So if there's no other comments or anything, then I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Get out of here inside my 1 hour meeting.
So move.
Thank you. Second. First guy, second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.